Here is an anointed, appointed, called prophet who is specifically instructed to go and prophesy against the other ones who are teaching falsely or prophesying falsely. Now, by the way, when he says prophesy against them, what does prophecy mean again? It means to speak the word of Yahweh with authority. Inspired speaking with authority. Okay, so he's not prophesying saying, speak to them what their future holds, and like get out your mirrored ball and your tea leaves. He's saying, prophesy against them. Speak to them so they know what is going to happen to them, what Yahweh feels about what they're doing. Speak what Yahweh has said with authority. This is the challenge that's out there for all of us. We have an abundance of people out there, quote unquote, claiming they're prophesying. They don't use the word prophecy. They just claim that they're speaking the word of Yahweh with authority. And they're out there with YouTubes and blogs and vlogs, and websites and all these other things. And yet, do they really actually speak the word of Yahweh with authority? Have they been given that authority? And how do we know? Yahweh does not appreciate people speaking out of the abundance of their own heart and claiming it's him. And so we have to be really careful. And part of the way you can see that is you can see, I don't know how the best way to word this, look for the emotional strength behind what people are saying as opposed to the just conviction. When you sense that somebody is very emotionally involved and you can feel that content, most of the time that's out of their own heart. A vision doesn't actually have to be a physically manifested where they actually saw visually something. It means they were given the insight and the guidance from above to take a group of people or to do something and take it in a particular direction. It's like someone says, I had a vision for, like a filmmaker will say, I had a vision for the way this movie would come out. I have a vision as a politician for how I would lead this country or I would lead a city. I have a vision for as a man talking to a woman that I want to marry. I have a vision for what our life would be in the future as a husband and wife and family. You know, you have to have a vision. Well, the question is it your vision or is it his vision? Now, if you've ever tried to work on a project with somebody and we had different visions, you know how hard that was. Husbands and wives, if you've not had the same vision about certain things that were happening in your relationship or in the family, then what did you have? Strife, conflict, problems, issues. There's no unity. Unity is only when everybody is working towards the same vision. See what a breach will do? In a garment, it's a hole that gets bigger and bigger, the tear. But in a group, the group watches people doing, especially if they're new, and they go, oh, I don't know how to do this, but I just saw so-and-so doing it. That must be the right way to do it. And then it ends up being duplicated and copied and duplicated and copied until everybody's doing error. Because after all, they learned it from watching. Here's it even worse. They learned it from the leadership behind the microphone. This is scathing, the attacks that they're getting from the Almighty about the problems that they had and why they're going to end up in such trouble and why they're going to end up in the captivity and all these kind of things. So they need to know, look, Yahweh is concerned with people not putting a protective wall around to make sure that they're guarding the commands. I'm sure those foolish prophets don't know they're being foolish prophets. So up to you to pray for discernment and to match up what I'm saying or anybody who speaks says against the word. And to see if there's any agenda in there. Hopefully all you see in my agenda is I'm trying to make sure that you have the best possibility of getting from where you are into the forever kingdom. I want the truth whether I like it or not, because the I is what gets in all the way. That's why this is all being read and we're talking about the heart, because the heart is the problem. It's out of the abundance of the heart that all that I comes out of. I like, I don't like. Why do I have to do that? That's not fair. I don't want to have to do that. I should be able to do this. Blah, 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 blah. Stop already. When you stop wanting the thing that you keep doing, the enemy will stop pushing and you'll stop doing it. It's just like anybody that ever quit cigarettes. Until you actually didn't really want them anymore, you weren't going to quit. You tried to quit. I talk to people all the time that quit and people that fail to quit. And it's only one simple difference in all of them. Until they wanted it, it didn't happen. Now, intellectually, they may say, I want to quit. No. I'm saying here in the heart, where you no longer want that thing, where that thing is now reprehensible, disgusting, I don't want it, it's offensive to you personally, you will stop. Not because it's logic for you to stop, not because it's rational for you to stop, because you actually don't want to do it anymore. Submission doesn't come into play until you don't agree with the one you're supposed to submit with. Let's make that clear. Submission never, ever happens until you and the one you're submitting to are in disagreement. So as long as you're walking along the way and you agree with everything Yahweh says, that's not submission, that's agreement. Which, by the way, is good too. It's good to walk in agreement. Two don't walk together unless they agree, right? They have to have an agreement on how they're going to walk together. So it's good that you agree and you walk together. But see, the submission part, when he wants you to be submissive to him, comes when he says no, and you say, but I want to anyway. Somehow we have to get to that place where I have no dog in the hunt. I've got no agenda. I've got no preference. It's just what he said. Because all of this comes back to people rathering, preferring, and having their own agendas that gets them in all this trouble. And so they're trying to find a way to justify that which is actually not justifiable. And that's the spinning and the bending. And that's what this is, the divining the lie. Now we're going to get back to what Ezekiel said. That essentially is what I believe it means when it says divining a lie. Taking what Yahweh said, reinterpreting it to your own advantage, and then putting it forth to other people. I'm going to give you the whole essence in like 2 seconds. That whole teaching is to tell you you don't have to do all of it. That's all it is. It's an argument in case, which they believe they make a plausible argument in case that not everything that Yahweh said you actually have to do. That it was only for a period of time, and then what Yeshua did is freed you from that piece of it. That's the spin to justify the people who don't want to do everything. I'm sorry, but me personally, I don't find a single thing anywhere in here that Yahweh said offensive to me. Stop trying to figure out, I can't tell you, it hasn't happened in a while, but it used to be year after year, people come up to me and say, as they were coming out of the churches, I just trying to figure out how much of the old transfers into the new. Everything? It's not hard. Because they're like telling me how they're studying and struggling to see how much of the old actually carries forward. All of it. Stop struggling. It all carries forward. The only difference between the old and the new, and that's not even in the new, the only difference between the old and where we are now is that there's some things you can't do. I didn't say you shouldn't. I didn't say that they're no longer necessary. I said there's some things that you can't do now. We are looking forward to a forever. We want to spend forever with the Father and the Son. We're looking forward to that group, and that group lives in a place that has rules. They have community living rules. They've got interaction with relationship rules. They've got all kinds of protocols, and that's why we're learning this stuff, because that's going to be how that place is run. If you want to be there, in my Father's house is many rooms. Yeah, guess what? In my Father's house is house rules. They're trying to please and tickle ears. They're trying to encourage and tell people they're okay when they're not okay. They're trying to tell people there's peace when there's no peace. Oh, no, that's okay what you're doing. Don't worry about it. It's wonderful. He understands. Oh, my gosh, how much horrible things have been done in the name of, oh, that's okay. I'm sure God understands. I'm sure Yahweh understands. I'm sure Abba understands. Yeah, he does. He understands that you're doing what you want and not what he wants. He understands. Oh, and people would say, the other side of that, or another way of saying that is when people say, oh, well, he knows my heart. Yeah, he does. That should scare you. He knows that your heart is to do what you want in that particular moment and not him, but you're trying to justify that somehow your heart is to please him while you're doing your stuff. Part of why life is so tough right now for some of you, probably all of you, is because he's uncovering some of your foundations and it ain't fun. I know that's not proper English, but it's just not fun. He's got to tear that down. Why? So he can lay a proper foundation, a foundation that's Messiah, so they can then build up the house properly. Some of us, what we're trying to do is build a house on a bad foundation. The sand or whatever it is, right? So we're building the house on a bad foundation. Like the verse talks about, a builder counting the cost and then building that house and building it out of brick or out of straw, and building it on a firm foundation. But there is no other foundation you can build on except Messiah. Well, guess what? Some of us have a mixture. There's some Messiah and some of me. You got to get the me part out and let it all be Messiah. Get that I out of it. It's not part Messiah, part me. You guys aren't a team collaborating on this deal. Get you out of the way and build it all him.